Good morning to Keep the Faith with Pastor Frank. Pray you're all doing well this morning. And it's the start of a new week, getting closer to Christmas. So, as always, if you will, whenever you join me, let me greet you. This morning, I titled our little deal God Provides, and we're going to be in Exodus chapter 16. So, good morning, Sister Janine. It's good to see you this morning. Pray you're doing well. Good morning, Brother Lee. It's good to see you this morning. Pray things are going well for you. We're going to be. Good morning, Brother Lewis and Sister Gail. Pray y'all are doing well. We're going to be talking about God provides, and Sister says good morning to everyone. And you know the kind of the background story, how the children of Israel left the land of Pharaoh, or left out of Egypt. But they get about a month out and they start complaining about not having any food and a lot of things. So the Lord heard their complaints, and he told Moses to talk to the people. So I'm going to read a passage of scripture. It's quite a few verses. Actually, there's not that many verses, but they're kind of long. But I want to read this and just make a few comments this morning. So it's Exodus 16, and I'll start with verse 9. Then Moses said to Aaron, "Announce this to the entire community of Israel. Present yourselves before the Lord, for he has heard your complaining." And as Aaron spoke to the whole community of Israel, they looked out toward the wilderness. There they could see the awesome glory of the Lord in the cloud. Then the Lord said to Moses, "I have heard the Israelites' complaints. Now tell them, in the morning you will have meat to eat. In the evening you will have meat to eat. In the morning you will have all the bread you want. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." That evening, vast numbers of quail flew in and covered the camp. And the next morning, the area around the camp was wet with dew. When the dew evaporated, a flaky substance as fine as frost blanketed the ground. The Israelites were puzzled when they saw it. "What is it?" they asked each other. They had no idea what it was. And Moses told them, "It is the food the Lord has given you to eat. These are the Lord's instructions. Each household should gather as much as it needs. Pick up 2 quarts for each person in your tent." So the people of Israel did as they were told. Some gathered a lot, some only a little. But when they measured it out, everyone had just enough. Those who gathered a lot had nothing over, and those who had gathered only a little had enough. Each family had just what it needed. Then Moses told them, "Do not keep any of it till morning." And I'll stop there. And I'm going to read verse 18. But when they measured it out, everyone had just enough. Those who gathered a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. And, one of the things that happens as we go through our life with the Lord has been a lot of different kinds of teaching about God's provision. But when and there's a couple of things I could talk quite a long time on this, but I'm going to just spend a few minutes this morning just to encourage you. And some of you know, you have followed the Lord, and you know that when it gets down to right when you really need it, God provides. I could give you testimony after testimony of how God has just provided just what I needed. sometimes more than enough, but mostly God provides just what you need. And here, uh, God had every intention of providing for the Israelites, and I want you to understand that God has every intention of providing for you. There's a couple of things that happen. Um, we aren't told how much food the Israelites wasted. When people are used to having everything they want, and they tell God before in the verse in the passages before this that they had, when they were slaves, they had meat to eat and all the bread they could eat. So they were complaining about what was provided by God, that God hadn't provided for them. So there's no telling how much food that over the month that they had wasted. And that's one of the things that happens when you have plenty, is you tend to, um, I don't know, get rid of, store, throw away, whatever it is that you don't need. But God has a tendency to just provide what you need, and when you need it. And a lot of times it's not before you need it. We like to be people who have it in hand before we need it. And many times people get upset and they get uh, anxious and get, when it doesn't seem like they have what they need. But when the time comes when they really need it, then God has a way of providing. That could be financially, that could be healing, that could be uh, spiritually, that could be many different things. God's provision stretches again across his whole dealings with mankind. When it's right at the time, God provides. And here, the Israelites had come, and you have to remember how many people are here. There's probably, let's say, 600,000 men left. So we're talking probably 1.5 million people here that are really in need of provision. So that's a huge amount of people that needs provision, and God provides. The people call it manna, and uh, it was really uh, it was like coriander seed, white like coriander seed, and then uh, it tasted like, what this translation says, tasted like honey wafers. And so not only was it tasty, but it was nutritious. It was the food that would they needed to sustain them while they were going through. And you need to understand that this food, this provision of God, didn't stop in the morning. It stopped when they got to uh, the promised land. So once the food stopped, the people had to learn a whole new way to live, and that's another story. But God's provision is for us, and He's with us at all times. And just understand that I know that some people feel like that God should provide riches and wealth and a life of ease and all of those kind of things, but that's not God's intention for us. Is that we have a life of ease. Neither is it necessarily an intention that we have a life of hardship. His intention for us is that we have a life filled with service to others and service to Him. So if you're uncomfortable with serving others, then I will say, over the years before Jesus comes, you'll have every opportunity to learn that service. But in this little passage of scripture, something happened that's actually really, I mean, so many miracles have happened. It's just incredible how this people would continue to complain and doubt God. However, I find the same thing today. If something's not happening, we tend very quickly to begin to complain about our state in life, the things that are happening in our life. But the fact is God cares about every part of it, and He will provide for us. I'll be honest with you, without His provision, uh, many years my family would have uh, been without. And I will say that we many times had more than we needed, and uh, many times we didn't know where the next meal would come from, but God always provided a way. And I'll just say, my mother, when I was growing up, my mother served the Lord. And of course, uh, as a child, I was in church, and it was only after I grew to a teenager that I didn't go because my mother didn't make me. But uh, my mother always believed in the Lord, and we always had food. It's amazing. I'm not talking about a big spread and all of that, but just enough. And sometimes it was just enough. And to be honest with you, as children, we didn't really realize how little there was, but it was enough. And uh, as we continued through our life, and I grew up to be an adult and had my own family, you know, for many years I wasn't a Christian, so I considered myself a provider, and and my wife was a Christian, so I considered myself a provider, and didn't give God the glory, and many times found myself having to have others help me. That and that was really uh, distressful to me. And over time, when I became a Christian, I understood what had been happening. God was providing and showing that He was being the one that was providing and not me. So as we go through our lives, I just want to encourage you, give thanks to God for what He's provided you. You say you want more. That's true. Sometimes we do want more. Humans have a tendency to want a lot more. But let's just give thanks to God, especially in this Christmas season. Give thanks to God for His provision, as and the more you give God the glory and give God the thanks for what He's provided you, the more He's able to pour into your life, because what will happen is you'll begin to help others. So this morning, don't get distressed. Uh, don't get shook up. God will provide for you just like He did for the children of Israel. And His provision lasts for us. His provision will last for eternity. So uh, help others by realizing that God provides for us, and He'll continue to provide for us. And as we continue to realize that our help, our provision comes from God, that it's not from us, then God can use us to touch the lives of others. So during this Christmas season, I know a lot of people that when it begins to come the Christmas season, people begin to really reach out and let God provide. So, and they reach out through them and provide for others. So I just pray that God would touch you and minister to you, and that God's provision continues to follow you wherever you go. And as He provides for you, you let Him use you to provide for others. Keep the faith. I'll see you in the morning, 6:30. All my stuff works in Jesus' name.